Welcome to the Flat Track Factory. Flat track wheels are weird. Why use one? How do they work? What are they? What are the advantages? And maybe some of the disadvantages. Stick around and we'll dig into it. First off, we probably should define our terms and say, for this discussion, a flat track wheel has to do with a framed flat track bike in an oval setup. Why does that matter? Well, we could be talking about the DTX bike, which is the dirt bikes modified for flat track. Sometimes those use stock hubs. Or if we have a framed bike on a TT, we could be using a front brake setup. Why does that matter? Well, one of the most distinctive things about flat track wheels is there's no front brake, and that looks strange to people. The front wheel uses a spool hub. The spool hub, I guess, is like a spool of thread, perhaps. Some of them in the old days were quite small, and that's what it looked like to me anyway. There is no drive pins or bosses for front brake attachment because we don't use a front brake in flat track. That's a whole other discussion. Why do we not do that? Well, it's just not necessary. This is the most simple reason. The corners that we race on almost every track, every properly designed flat track, in my opinion, are wide enough relative to the straightaway length that it's just not necessary. TTs being the exception. We refer to the purpose-built rear flat track wheel as a knock-off hub or a knock-off wheel. Why? Well, we have this gigantic nut that holds the rear disc carrier and the sprocket on with a gigantic nut called the knock-off nut. The wheel is symmetrical, which is another really cool thing that I always enjoy. I forget how cool these are because I've been around them my whole life basically, and when new guys come, motocross guys, supermoto guys, road racers, find our sport and see this happen, I've got some fun reactions because it being symmetrical with a knock-off nut, we can literally take the wheel, take the sprocket off one side, the disc and carrier off the other side, spin the wheel and put them back on and put it on the bike, flipping your tire over effectively in a matter of moments. That's actually shown in another one of my videos that I'll try to remember to put a card up if you want to watch that whole process. Why use a purpose-built set of flat track wheels? Well, they're badass and the chicks dig them. What? Okay, so some other reasons why. They're purpose-built. They don't have extraneous things on them that we don't need, like the front wheel spool, obviously doesn't need all the brake attachments for the most part. The rear wheel has some incredible advantages that I'll add in. The knockoff feature of the rear wheel is worth the price of admission alone. Gear changes and flipping the edge over impart advantages that a traditional hub, like any other type of motorcycle that has the sprocket and disc carrier bolted to it and is probably asymmetrical, where even if you could flip the disc carrier and the sprocket, the wheel offset may be different. That's a mess, and I just couldn't do it any other way. To get the sprocket and disc carrier off of this wheel, you only need two tools: the knock-off wrench and dead blow hammer. That's it. Let's take a look at doing that process and you can see how it works. It's pretty slick. Now, this is going to get more exciting. The amount of torque required to safely secure the nut on the drive side is substantially higher than what's needed on the disc carrier side. So, filming this and getting out of the way enough to show you, we might create some cartoons. Let's see. And now we're here at the inevitable flat track factory tangent. Now that I've got the 47 tooth rear off of the wheel, I need to put it back into my gear stack. Here is another piece of iconic flat track kit, the Flat Track Racers gear stack. In my case, it comprises a sprocket, 47 tooth, 46 all the way down to 37. This, in my case, comprises a 1-2 step from one gear all the way to the next. So I can split each individual gear into third gear 1 tooth faster, third gear the next tooth faster, 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 faster. And eventually I'll get fast enough going in third gear with a small enough sprocket that I can now go to fourth gear with a larger sprocket. There's no place that I can't go to be within at least 1 tooth of my ideal gearing. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use the removable center section of the flat track racing wheel. If somebody's really curious about this sort of stuff, I'll make another video about it. But this is, for demonstration purposes, easier for me to show you than in the entire wheel. This would just slide into the hub section of a flat track wheel. We'll talk about that maybe in another video. So we're going to go to the racetrack, and I check my notes and I find out I run this track third gear at 1542, let's say. So we're at the shop and we'll go ahead and set the bike up with that. Pull out our gear stack, select our 42. Go ahead and put this together with a 42. All right, take our knock-off wrench, torque that up, and then spin it around, and then go ahead and put our disc and carrier on. Disc and carrier here. So these, both the socket and the disc have these drive pin locating holes here. See the sprocket is similar. And those fit on the pins here, 4 in this case, to locate the holes in the carrier. And of course, put our nut on. Take our knock-off wrench, hammer that in. Boom, we go out on the racetrack, find out, racetrack's a little bit slower than I thought. I'm getting yanked on the way out of the corner, not quite hitting the rev limiter where I normally do. I need to get a little more engine speed to match the track conditions. Pull the wheel off, and now we're going to make the bike a little faster. Or I'm sorry, the bike rev a little faster, go a little slower. Pull the nut off, select the next sprocket in line. I'm going to go to a 43. Out of my stack, I take my 43, mount that up, put my nut on, torque it, put it in the bike, and then I have to adjust my wheelbase forward a little bit because the sprocket's bigger. Won't fit in the chain length I had before, so the bike has to become shorter, or I have to put a longer chain on it. one tooth, I really wouldn't make the chain longer. So that's how it functions, and really doing the change for real doesn't really take that much longer. And you can take a look at the other video for me to kind of do it slowly and talk the way through how that works. Last two things I was going to tell you about are the advantages and disadvantages of a purpose-built flat track racing wheel. The advantages I think are pretty self-evident here, showing you the change and how quickly it is to go from one gearing to the next with the Knock-0ff setup. And furthermore, if maybe you have a situation where we often do in Carolina clay or red clay, really any kind of clay really, where you may have a bit of a looser situation where you might want a fresh edge on one side, and then as the track brushes off and takes rubber, you may want a worn side on the other, and it won't wear enough in the night to get there from fresh sharp edge to lower tread height and more rounded edges, which is faster on hardpack, in one or two practice sessions. So I may go with a well-scuffed tire on the right side with a fresh edge on the left, and then at some point in the night when I feel it's time, I'll simply pull the wheel out, switch the disc and sprocket, and flop the wheel in and go from fresh edge to scuffed edge in probably about 2 to 5 minutes. The disadvantages, they're expensive. I mean, flat track motorcycle racing is cheap. I mean, go to your local dirt car race and just look at what they spend there. So this stuff from Durrell Racing, it's like $2,000 for a set of wheels. The engineering is incredible, super durable, super trick. He's put a lot of work into it. There's other manufacturers too. I have a Cosman hub from my teenage years that I still use. It's great. It's fine. It's not as trick. It's not as nice, and the offsets are a little different. So I have to adjust my disc carrier. My caliper carrier, and that makes me grumpy. But yeah, there's really not that many disadvantages to it. So there you go. That's kind of the full breakdown on purpose-built flat track racing wheels. Thanks for watching.